It is getting really hot this time of year.
Yep, standing. Oh, wait, no, something happened now.
Running.
We have to run for things.
Yep.
Metaphors. Catch. Let's go.
I missed that car.
Yeah. Vern doesn't let you drive it anymore?
No. Anthony took his place, too. All right, let's go. All right, hello! And welcome to Talk Heathen. I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Jamie Boone.
It's May 19th, 2019, Season 3, Episode 20. Dude, have you been?
Yep.
All right.
14 days. Oh, my God.
You know what? I'm really, really excited for Jamie. We had our elections yesterday, and I am proud to announce our returning president, Jamie Boone. Woo.
Just a glutton for punishment.
Well, we're glad to have you, brother.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to have the job again.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything
That's
else
why
going
I
on
ran
this
for
week?
it.
I've been on leave.
What is happening?
I'm going back to the doctor. I'm hoping I can get a clean bill of health and get back next week. Yeah. But other than that, I've been watching as things have been going and hoping for the best. And man, this really is my favorite part of the week. I absolutely love when we get to do this show. I'm excited. No other really big announcements, I think. If there's nothing else, do you want to head over to calls?
Yeah, let's do what we do.
All
best.
right. Then as we do that, we do have full lines, but when we turn them over, people will have the chance to call in. Our phone number is 512-686-0279. That's 512-686-0279. If you like what we do, you want to be able to empower us to continue to do the good work that we do, not just in our shows, but in our outreach programs and all of that other amazing stuff, please consider becoming a patron. You can go to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. Go.
Alice in the UK. You're on with
Hello.
Jamie and Eric.
Hi, Alice.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Doing well.
I'm okay.
What would you like to talk about today?
I was listening to another show, which I've also forgotten the name of because I came across it at about 2 a.m. and people in the chat just told me, basically dared me to call in, so...
Okay.
I heard you were interested in why people believe
Yes.
certain things. Yeah. So for me, I've had like some experiences which I described as like spiritual experiences, good and bad, that would make me think there is something out there. And then there's a combination of evidence for like the Christian God based on the evidence of Jesus.
Okay. Well, so let's tackle this personally, right? Because there's no point in having the conversation, about things that you don't believe and things like that. So, what is it that really has you convinced? Maybe we can start with your best evidence and talk about it.
Well, it's just like it's not one specific thing. It's all of those things combined that. There's never like a 100% thing on one side or a 0% thing on the other. It's like a tipping scale type of thing.
Well,
and you either go, that's the way I see it.
But that's not actually true for the rest of the world, right? It's not, well, maybe it's I mean, there is an answer to things, right? Either there is this God that you're talking about or there's not this God that you're talking about. It's not really up to me or you to determine whether or not it exists. It either does or doesn't. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's investigate it a bit. You said that you've experienced spiritual things. What is spiritual?
Yeah.
That's kind of a muddy word that a lot of people use differently. So let's maybe start there and make sure that we can understand each other well.
Well, there's one experience which I have, which is kind of negative, but one where I was kind of rebelling a bit, and then I tried to summon some demons, and I actually had some it was like this big wall of hate came over me, and like these horror, I don't know how to describe it, but it wasn't like it was human. And it was like these things talking in my ear, telling me not to be friends with these people. And well, I don't think most people would believe you saying that unless they'd experienced it themselves.
Well, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
I've believed plenty of people have experienced some things. I mean, there are people who say that they hear voices all of the time. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're hearing voices. It might mean that there's something else going on. The question is, how do we determine one from the other, right? Because, you know, if you want to talk about likelihood, we can talk about how likely it is that somebody heard voices, which we have lots of evidence for, people thinking that they hear things and have different, you know, either unexplained things or experience mental breaks that, you know, contribute to that or might be under the influence of drugs, things like that, versus the idea of demons, which are something that we would need to show exist and how they get places and whether or not teleportation is a thing or if they're invisible or if hate is something that can be thrown at some, you know what I mean? Like there's a whole lot of that. How would you determine that you summoned a demon versus something that's likely a more naturalistic response, you know, or more naturalistic reason?
I'd say like, well, because being completely sober, so it's not going to be down to drugs. So it's like the likelihood thing and the connection between the behavior at the time and what has actually happened. Mm-hmm. That's where it's connected.
Okay. Are you aware of something called priming?
No, I'm not.
Jamie, do you want to talk about priming, or do you want me to grab that?
No, because I have no idea where you're going with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So priming is a kind of a psychological trick that we play on ourselves and each other, and it's really interesting. You find it in like horoscopes and things like that, where somebody says your lucky number is 17, and from there, you start looking for the number 17. And when you start looking for it, you find it everywhere. And the same is true for every number, right? Certain words or phrases, once you key in, you start to look for it. And then, oh my gosh, I saw it on a license plate. And I went here and the number was on the door and all this stuff. If you are setting yourself up to imagine that you're going to experience a certain thing, then the likelihood of you looking for, you know, I'm sorry, Alice, there's a sound going on in the background. My ADD's jumping in.
So what he's saying is if you have this idea that there are demons and that they can be summoned and that there's such a thing as like a wall of hate under which you can be covered or overcome, that's going to influence how likely you are to believe a thing like that, right? So part of what Eric is touching on is called acquisition bias, which is when your mind is primed to look at a thing, you then take more note of it, right? Your mind and your senses observe, I think, I forget percentages, but more than 6 times what you actually note or think or observe, you know, consciously. And so I think that's where he was going in terms of summoning a demon, etc. But at the present moment, I don't even know what you did to summon a demon, or how that worked out for you, or you know whether you've lived happily ever after with a demon, or what.
Or could we summon the demon?
Yeah, or could we? Hey, if that's a possibility, you know, I don't get out to date a lot. Can I just summon a demon and see how this goes?
I've met some of your exes. You've done well, Jamie.
There are topics we don't talk about on the show, Eric.
Can we summon a demon right now, Alice?
I suppose you could try.
Okay.
But I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, so either it's going to happen or it's not, right?
Okay.
All right, what do we do?
Well, what did you do to summon a demon?
I had this book that showed me how to do it with some rituals and chants that you can say, and you call on certain things. But it's now gone, the book, so...
Okay. So, Alice, why did you summon a demon? Like, what were you?
I wasn't very happy, and I wanted to find a job with money.
You know, I can sympathize. I would also like a job with money. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I'm not sure which direction to go with this, particularly given the framework you set up.
Yeah. So where I'm going with this is we look for falsifiability in claims. We look to see if something is replicatable and what it would look like if it was true and what it would look like if it was false. To date, this has been tested and tested and tested and tested and tested and tested, and so far has not come out with conclusive, evidence that we have not yet been able to show, even to a reasonable degree at all, that anything happens when you do that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot to show to be able to get there. And that's always being weighed up against the other possible conclusions. And I would say that the conclusion that something naturalistic happened, we have evidence for. The conclusion that something supernatural happened, we have zero evidence for. And so I guess where we're sitting now with you calling in, Alice, would you expect that story to convince us?
Not unless you've experienced it yourself. That's what I mean.
Okay. Do you need to experience flying to the moon to know whether or not we put astronauts on the moon?
Well, that's a more common belief, I suppose. But lots of people deny that we ever got on the moon, didn't they?
Is that justified, though?
Well,
like, is the belief that human beings have walked on the moon justified? Is there sufficient evidence for that?
It's not a topic that I've really looked into, but I guess
so Alice,
with anything, it depends who you trust.
Alice, in the notes it says that you believe in God because of a personal experience. Do you believe that a God exists?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that God?
I can't tell you lots about, because it's inconceivable to the human mind, really.
Well, I mean, if it's a thing that you believe exists, presumably you conceive of it to some degree.
Yeah, but only to a very, very limited amount.
Well, so the parts of it that are inconceivable, do you believe that those parts exist?
Yeah.
This is torture, not making a Princess Bride joke right now.
What?
It's inconceivable.
There's a movie where inconceivable. And
it's not you. I do it to Jamie.
Okay.
I just can't.
Eric is razzing me on the side, but
go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking.
Yeah. So Alice, if you're talking about things that you believe that exist, but you're unable to describe any attributes of that thing.
Well, there's certain attributes like there's like the love and the sacrificial nature, but there's also like the war nature and it's like.
So these are attributes of God.
Yeah, but
or
you also
gods?
see of the one, and then.
Wait, so when you say that there's a warlike nature, what does that mean? Can you elaborate, please?
Like, kind of like where it says, not to bring peace but a sword, and things like that.
Think not that I've come to bring peace on earth. I've not come to bring peace but the sword. Yeah. So the Bible is part of the basis for your belief in a God.
Yeah.
Do you believe the rest of the Bible is true?
Well, it depends. Well, there's lots of it that's poetry.
How do you determine what's poetry and what's true? Like, how do you tell the difference?
Oh, what's poetry and what's literal?
Yeah.
Well, it's quite hard because so I rely on like people that are smarter than me most of the time. But I know that, well, you know, like the obvious things like all the Psalms are poetry, and then there's books that are historical accounts like the Gospels, but they also contain lots of symbolism as well, and it's quite a hard thing to wrap your head around.
So what I would say is, I'm not a doctor. In order to determine whether or not a person is ill, I couldn't necessarily do it, so I rely on people that are more qualified. But if someone said, how does a doctor diagnose illness, I would say if they're trying to figure out if a bone is broken, they use an x-ray. If they're trying to figure out if you have a virus, they might check for symptoms, they might take your temperature, they might run blood tests. What kinds of things is it that people do to determine whether or not a passage in the Bible is literal or metaphorical?
I don't actually know the answer to that.
Right. So
I do.
How do you determine, because people that spend their entire lives interpreting and providing answers about what parts of the Bible are true and which parts are literal and which parts are metaphorical, you have conflicting accounts from intelligent, studied people. How do you determine which person to listen to?
For that, I guess you have to determine what place they're coming from, and it is quite hard to try and there are lots of like opposing ideas. You have to see whether they're like coming from a place of love or whether they have like some big agenda, because like I wouldn't say all translations of the Bible are created equal, because you never know what agenda like King James had or something. You know,
there's that. So here's what I will say. Here's one of the many things that I will say to clarify. There seems to be this inherent assumption in your last statement, which is that, if the person, translating or interpreting has an agenda, you shouldn't use them reliably as a source. And you also said, if they're coming from a place of love, presumably that means they're a more reliable source as far as God's word is concerned. Is that correct? Just to clarify.
Not necessarily not use them, but like compare them all together and see.
Okay. So let me throw this at you as well. The same thing happens in Islam, and the fate of entire countries and their laws flip on a dime based on that, right? And people do precisely that same process that you're describing to words that are held as sacred as you hold the ones that you hold sacred. Why should you use the Bible instead of the Quran, and the interpretation that you're using of biblical text instead of Quranic text?
Well, because if you go back to evidence of the resurrection of Jesus, the Quran says that Jesus didn't die.
What evidence? But hold on. So why shouldn't you believe that?
Because all the things line up. Have you ever watched The Case for Christ?
Yes.
The movie, no, but the book I have read.
Oh yeah.
I still demand that time back.
So Alice, I really want to
go ahead.
To get you on this, which is that there are two sacred texts and traditions here. Well, fields of tradition. I'm not going to try and pretend that all the Christians are the same, or that all the Muslims are the same, or their traditions are the same. But if there's a series of stories that says Jesus died and was resurrected, and that relates to God and God's actions on earth, and there's a series of stories that say that Jesus didn't die, that Jesus wasn't tortured to death, didn't resurrect, and that's related to God and God's actions on earth. what method would I use to determine which of those two things is more likely to be true, given that the people that practice these traditions fall down to you must have faith?
So faith comes in a bit, but you don't have to always have completely blind faith. So
That's good. So how do I see?
There are obviously I can't speak ancient Hebrew or ancient Greek, but there's other texts around that are from that time period.
Why would those other texts be authoritative?
Well,
I mean, in 1,000 years, if, I don't know, whatever political forces start world wars 3 and 4, and people are looking back at these ancient traditions and they're trying to figure out exactly how Harry Potterism was practiced and what the sacred texts were, they can go back and they can try and find the best manuscripts of the original text, and then, oh wait, the American version is slightly different than the British version, so you can have a schism, and they've found all of the fan fiction, and that just leads to a wild panoply of insanity. But if they're looking at that and someone said, well, why would you believe that any of the things in those stories was true, or that one text was more authoritative than the other? And someone said, oh, but look, you can find more texts written about this subject at the same time. It doesn't lend inherent credibility to the events described. I don't believe that Harry Potter exists or existed because I don't have good reason to, and I don't know why I would believe that Jesus did either.
Do you think it's like a storybook?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Another example is Spider-Man, right?
Well,
Spider-Man takes place
Alice,
in New York.
I just mean, how does that strike you in terms of there are lots of stories written from a culture that passed on its history, from a time and a place where cultures passed on their history and their traditions orally and told stories in order to edify each other and their children. So the fact that eventually those stories made it onto paper is not surprising to me, and the fact that those cultures and that paper was then grabbed and run with by religious organizations and teachings and traditions is also not surprising to me. But none of those things are persuasive to me in terms of Jesus' resurrection actually occurred or a miracle actually occurred. I can find stories of miracles that are much older than the Bible.
Right.
Yeah. Why would I believe this one?
Well, do you know about the amount of witnesses that there were?
Yeah, I know.
We know about the story. The story does say 10,000 witnesses, but if I found an older text that said 20,000 witnesses, would you believe that was more authoritative? Because again, that's part of the story.
It was written close to the time.
And also, let's also jump in here really quick. If Alice, single story says
it comes to the same point, which is this is the thing that the story says. What evidence would you have to support it externally? And another detail in the story doesn't do that.
Well, externally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, so we've had you on the line for a while, and I more than anything want this to be a repeat call.
And I actually want to jump in before we finish. So,
So Alice, my sort of question was, I don't want to end the conversation here. I just want to also check that you're going to be able to call in again next week.
Maybe.
All right. Well, in any case, I think Eric wanted to talk to you as well.
Yes, absolutely. I love the conversation. I love that we're talking about it. It's taking place at 25% the speed that I wish it was taking. But Jamie has amazing, very poignant, very thoughtful
What did you
points.
want to ask Alice?
What I wanted to ask Alice... Oh, you read that? Anyway, I'm caffeinated. So Alice, what I wanted to say was... so let's say I have a book that says 10,000 people did something. Do you believe it because it says 10,000 people did something? Or do you actually have to see that 10,000 people did the thing, right? Saying that 1,000 people saw a thing is part of the claim. That's not the actual evidence backing it up. Do you get what I mean here?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, so if I say 500 people all saw a miracle and we all saw it together and we all wrote it down, then what you would expect to see is 500 written accounts by all of those people, right?
Okay.
We don't have that, though. We don't have the evidence of that. And so what you've done is you've kind of confused the claim for the evidence. And it's not that we're angry or anything like that. We're just looking for the evidence. But it looks like you've got a lot to go through. And I think that Jamie gave you a whole lot that you can kind of chew on and think about and call back on. Because it does matter whether or not something is true. It does matter whether or not, this belief is true, because it can influence every part of your life. And we want you to have the right tools and be a critical thinker, because it's going to help everywhere. It's going to help the way you raise, a family, or the way that you work. It's going to impact the way you're a neighbor and the way you interact in society. And that's important. We want you to have the best tools available. So hopefully you can go back over this and consider it and give us a call back and see what you think.
Okay.
All right. We weren't that bad, were we?
No.
Good.
I'm just a very slow thinker. I'm just really chilled.
That's okay. That's okay. We're going to get through it together, and hopefully this will help. Piece at a time.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right.
Wow, I'm going to go ahead and switch these real quick.
I don't.
You're good.
Caffeine, fine. I want to stay in the UK.
So much caffeine.
Let's go with Cal in Wales. Cal,
hey,
you're
guys,
talking to Eric and Jamie.
Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes. Jamie took my caffeine.
There's
a little bit of delay. How are you guys anyway?
I'm doing good. I am jittery and caffeinated.
Jittery as fuck.
And
there wasn't much of an intro today, guys. I mean, I said Beauty mentioned Jamie's president or something. What was that all about?
Oh, the Atheist Community of Austin has elections every year for its board and
I was reelected president.
Yeah, I'm sitting next to El Jefe.
Congratulations or commiserations?
It's congratulations.
Yeah, it's
I ran, I wanted it, and I got what I wanted. So,
which one of you was talking about a bill of health anyway? Was it you, Eric?
Yeah, that's
talking about having a fit bill of health.
Yeah.
Why did you mention that? Was you not well?
Yeah.
Not been well?
No, that's okay. I'm okay talking about it.
Right.
So I've talked on the show before about the fact that I have clinical depression.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes it rears its ugly head and takes me down for a little while. The good news is I'm employed by the ACA that is incredibly positive and supportive when it comes to taking care of me. And so about 2 weeks ago...
So you believe you're getting the correct help right now?
I do. Medication and cognitive behavioral therapy has been helping me a lot. And I'm really, really happy that I've got the support and love of some amazing people. So, but other than that...
Well, that's great. You've got positive stuff in it.
I do.
Positive, yeah.
Yeah. Outside of that, it gets kind of personal. I don't want to get too deep into it, but yeah.
But speaking of getting deep into personal things, I believe you called in because you want to talk about your beliefs in a god or gods.
Yes. What would you like to talk about today? That is very considerate, for you to jump in and ask.
I particularly describe one god, but I probably believe there's more out there. It's hard to discuss. I don't fully know what I believe, but I guess that's what belief is, right? I mean, could we discuss some of the things? Because I know something's going to make you happy. I do want to be, I'm a repeat caller. I want to call you next week and the week after and the week after, because what I want to unpack is so large, I don't think we could do it in just a day. Is that something you guys would be interested in?
It totally depends on what you want to talk about and whether or not that's something that fits our show and is interesting and exciting. So let's start here.
It's experience, which means you don't believe in a God. Is that correct?
Well, that's kind of
to be
correct.
clear,
so
you're on Talk Heathen.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Sorry,
yeah,
I just...
We're the sister show of the Atheist
Experience. To me. What is the differences anyway? What would you say the difference between your show and the Atheist Experience actually is?
We take our time.
let me
We have
just say
repeat callers.
This is Eric Murphy and
You
Jamie
both kind of
Boone,
spoke
and
at the
there's your
same time there. What did
difference.
you say?
So Jamie jumped in because he was making the point that we are the same hosts every time.
Yeah.
We're more patient.
Yeah,
we take repeat callers. If somebody wants to call in about a philosophical argument, we try and address throughout what the argument is and why it is, and we don't just jump into things because we want people to be able to learn with us and explore these things together.
No, that's brilliant because well, that's why I've rung you today, guys.
Cheers. Let's get into it.
38 years of my life. For 38 years of my life, I've been an atheist, and I mean that not just I do.
Congratulations.
Christians ring up and pretend that they were atheists, and I could tell straight away that they're pretending they used to be atheists. Something about it just doesn't ring true for me. But like I literally was from a young age. All my family are atheists. All my friends have been born. We're atheists. I'm trying to convince my boy. Can I give him a big shout out? His name is Skinners. Can I give him a shout out? He's watching right now, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, hey Skins. In fact, can you both guys do it with me? Can you say a big hey to Skinners? Big hey Skinners.
No, because that stuff's been taken out of context and gotten really weird. I'd rather not.
Yeah,
but
and I'm not entirely...
Hi, Cal's friend.
Yeah, not entirely familiar with the slang of Wales. So I don't know what that means in Cardiff. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I actually want to jump in really quick before we go because you've talked about what we believe as atheists and how you were an atheist. So let's make sure that we agree on the definition together, right? So when we talk about atheism, we're talking about assessing the theist claim, right? And were you listening to the last call?
I was, yeah, mostly towards the beginning.
Sure.
I took some notes down. I got my notepad here and that ready, but I didn't.
Nice.
I saw those off towards the end.
Well, here's the thing. With Alice, she was saying that she believed some things in the Bible and other things were, not necessarily true things that happened, that they could have been poetry or allegory. And so we can actually take a look at that. And if I were to write that out, that would be a set of beliefs about a God, right? But I could go to a different religion and say, do you accept this set of beliefs? And they'll, oh, no. That wasn't all allegory. That was all literal. And that's a different set of beliefs, right? And so we can go back and, oh, no. All of it was metaphor. Oh, okay, so that's a different set. And so what we're left with is needing to evaluate each person's claim about whether or not that set of belief is true and justified. And
that's right, yes, sir.
Because of that, if I were to say there are no gods, what I would be doing is I would be completely cutting myself off to a definition that somebody might someday be able to show. And that would be the intellectually honest position would be to say that we're going to withhold belief until we see the evidence for that belief that justifies it.
Would you say it's true to say that you don't know a God doesn't exist and you don't know a God does exist? You stand on the side of just disbelief due to the fact that there's no evidence to prove that there is a God?
I think saying no God or God's a God doesn't exist doesn't really get us very far, because I could say that about Thor, but that doesn't necessarily mean it about everything else.
He's using the word "no" with a K, I think. Well, you know that no God.
Oh, yeah. Well, we can get into knowledge and all of that, but just to kind of give a generic response to how we classify atheism. Right. So we say we're atheists because we have not yet come across a religious or God claim that we've found to be, to have sufficient evidence. So
is that what atheist means, or is that the way you perceive the word atheism?
In the movement that we're in, that appears to be generally the term everybody uses. And really, people argue about agnosticism and atheism. As long as we all understand what each other means, I really don't care. Just as long as we're having a fruitful conversation. So
this is what I want to try and achieve through this talk with you today, guys, is just to get to the bottom of what we believe different things are. For me, knowing something and believing something are two different things. Do you guys believe that, or is this?
Yes.
Is that accurate?
There's also a distinction between the way that I use those words.
Yeah, so if I know something to be true and I can prove it 100% and show you and you can agree with me, then would we say that was knowing something?
I mean, pedantically, I'm going to be a little bit of a butthead, but generally in the bigger scope of things, yeah, I mean, if you could prove it, let's go with that.
Yeah. Butthead is the
Yeah,
technical
I think that's, if we couldn't prove something, what does that fall under?
That falls under I don't know. Some things can be disproven, right?
Okay, so.
But if you don't know, then the intellectually honest thing to do is say I don't know. And I say it's the most intellectually honest thing because it's difficult for people to say I don't know. And
no, I find it very simple, but I do believe there's a lot of people that do struggle with the word I don't know.
Agreed.
I find it one of the easiest sentences I can say.
But we're teeing up to something, and I feel like we should jump into it. Let's get into what you want to say.
Oh no, I understand, but I do feel that jumping into some things, is a wrong step to take, especially if there's a build-up that needs to be made. And I feel a lot of these conversations, where they break down, is because there's no build-up between the two people having these conversations. Well, which is why I said I'll be glad to ring back at some point. What I want to do is have a full depth understanding of what you guys believe and what you guys know.
Well,
so that's all.
Cool. So what do you believe?
Right now, and then we'll go into something.
Yeah. Do you believe that a God exists, Cal? I mean, I know that you're asking.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Can you tell us about that God? What's your favorite color?
Say again?
What's your God's favorite color?
Do they have a penis?
I have no idea what his favorite color is.
You're trying to set me up with everyone.
I use the word his because I'm a he, and it's comfortable for me to use the word his and nothing. I mean, my particular belief, my particular God, I mean, my God has nothing to do with my morality or anything like that. I mean, I believe in the same God most religions used to believe in until it got the way it is today. And
that's one hell of a claim that I've heard a lot of people.
To be our creator and our God.
That's one hell of a claim I've heard a lot of people make. We're still teeing up. Can you give us anything that we can work with? Are there any qualities or characteristics that the God that you believe in has that we can look at?
Give me an example. What do you mean?
Jamie said their favorite color, right? Did they say anything? Do we have any proof? Is there any mark that they've left that we can test whether or not that God exists? Is there anything tangible, or is there anything at all that we can do to point toward whether or not your belief is justified and true?
Did you hear what I said I thought my God was?
Yes, you said you thought your God was the same God that a bunch of other religions thought before they got all messed up.
No, I said that God was the Son. It might be the accent. The Son.
You believe that the Son is God?
No, I believe he's my God. I don't believe he is.
Okay, so
how many
hold on.
gods do you believe exist?
No, wait.
Because you said my God, not God.
Yeah, we can put a pin really quickly in this Son.
Is your God just Son? The Son?
So, does your God do anything other than provide light?
Provide light?
Yes.
He provides life.
Light. Energy. The actual sun that we see in the sky, is that
light and heat?
Is your God sentient? Does your God have commandments about anything?
I have no idea if my God is sentient. All I know is that.
See,
like I said, I have no idea.
Cal, thank you.
Sentient.
No, this is perfect because you have just defined a God. I think the word God is a silly word to use when describing the Son, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you can't. But what I'll say is, if you say that God, that's your God, then I'll look up and go, hey, the Son's there, the Son exists. Good job. Mm-hmm. We agree. Okay, the Son exists. I would not use the word God because the word God has a lot of baggage. Right? And when we take a look and say, well, this is a God, then, usually there are ideas of the afterlife and morality and ethics.
Yeah, but you're saying that God drags a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
Well, are you aware
you
that...
You don't believe in a God, so...
He's talking about the word God. When you use the word God in conversation, people don't generally mean, you mean the Son?
I'm talking to you, not people. I'm talking to you. What do you think the word God means?
We hear the word God used in a wide variety of ways, particularly on this show, and it just got a little bit wider because you say it means the Son.
Speaking to me.
Okay.
Cal? To them, I mean. So Cal? I'm saying...
No, hold on. Cal?
The reason he's saying that to
Jamie,
you
hold on.
is because he's saying you will confuse people when you're talking to them. Yeah, why would you call it that?
We're trying to help
anyone.
Yeah, which is why I wanted the bigger build-up.
Okay.
That's exactly why I wanted a big build-up and explain.
We all want a big build-up.
But you guys wanted to jump into it.
Okay, but
Because, like I said,
what's confusing is I don't care about like this entire conversation is about whether or not we should be accepting supernatural things, what people think about them and all of that. If you're saying that your God is not supernatural, it's just the existence of the sun, then Cal, stop. I agree with you. What else? Is there anything else to this conversation of substance?
Oh, yes, of course. Like I said, I didn't really want to talk about God. I'm just a theist that called up to talk to you guys about things that I believe in and things I want to change in this world. And
so what of substance do you want to bring up other than this?
You mean like qualities like spirituality, morality, them kind of things?
Are they word games that you're using to redefine and say that it doesn't matter? Or do you actually have some substance here?
It depends on what you mean. I don't understand.
He's trying to understand what your question is.
Sure.
Honestly.
So honestly, if we're going to argue about whether or not this mug that I'm holding in my hand exists and how you define it, and while you're not talking to, I really don't care. Okay, the mug exists. We're done. I really don't have more that I want to add to it because otherwise it's just mental masturbation. We're actually looking at effects on things, impact on things. So is there something that you're saying about morality and ethics that, has... What about it? I'm trying to dig for substance here.
Right, and so I believe there's a lot of truths in religions that are there that we just bypass. For example, let's give a good example. Born in sin, for example. Do you guys believe we're born in sin?
No, because when you're talking about sin, you're talking about the story at the very beginning of the Christian Bible of the Garden of Eden. What do you think sin is, Kyle?
What I think sin is? I think sin is just immorality, like an immoral...
Okay,
then it's a word game. I'm done. You good?
No, hold on.
Okay.
This is now... Cal, at one point you said that when you say God, you mean the sun, and that it provides life, right?
Yes.
Do you mean the literal sun, the star around which our solar system revolves, and it's called the solar system because the name of our star is Sol, that?
Yes, that.
So what the fuck does the Garden of Eden have to do with anything?
I'm not talking about the Garden of Eden.
No,
where does original sin come from? Where does born in sin? What does that mean?
He's redefining sin.
This is what I'm trying to discuss.
Okay. Sorry. I thought you were saying, but also I believe in original sin.
He's redefined sin to mean something that is not.
What does sin mean to you? When you say the word sin, what do you mean?
He said immorality.
Right. So I can only explain what I mean because I can't find the words.
All right.
Can I just explain what I mean? Is that
yes,
okay?
Please. Sorry.
Right. So, for example, when I was born, I was taught, for example, to eat meat, to eat dairy products, that kind of thing. Like, I don't know if I mentioned that I'm a vegan now because I believe that stuff is immoral.
Oh, dear, sweet baby Jesus.
Why didn't you start with that religion?
I said I was a vegan. What happened there? I said I was vegan. You said,
sorry. It's a joke because we're going to get a lot of flack and hate.
Do you know how many vegans hate us? We've gotten out from under this, Cal.
Not as many.
You know what you've done?
Not as many as hate.
What you've done?
We're joking with you, Cal. We're not actually upset. We're just joking with you.
Why do vegans? Why do they hate you?
Because we eat meat.
Yeah, because we eat meat, and this is not talk vegan.
It's about morality, right?
So but regardless, you said sin. That word has baggage. If you say I don't care about it, I'm just going to continue. Hold on, Cal. If you're going to say I don't care about it, and I'm just going to continue to use this word that has plenty of other words, and confuse things, I'm done. I don't care. This is a word game. This has zero substance to me, and it doesn't feel like there's anything we're learning as much as we are just learning about the way Cal defines things, and that is not interesting.
Well, can we talk about them?
No.
Cal.
No, I don't want to talk about the way you define things.
All right. So
I want to know,
Cal,
right?
What you've said is that people are born in immorality. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right, yes.
Can you describe specifically what that sentence means? Do you just mean that, the act of giving birth is immoral?
No. I am born into a world that teaches me immoral teachings. Yeah?
Okay.
And now I've become an adult, and I'm starting to understand more about these immoral teachings. I'm wondering, why was we taught them in the first place?
That has
I mean,
nothing to do with sin.
it depends on the teachings. It's because other people believed that they were good or true and communicated that to you with the desire that you believe the same thing.
He's throwing you down a trail. He started at sin.
I'm dragging him.
For example.
Why? Jamie.
Because I can see where the value of
You were supposed to bring balance to the forest, Jamie. You're going down a path that I cannot follow.
Well, then let me take him on. All right.
Fine.
All right. So, sorry. You were asking why someone would want you to believe these things that you now evaluate to be immoral.
Yes.
Okay. Did the answer that I gave provide something of an explanation?
Which answer?
The answer where I said because other people believed the moral teachings they were teaching you were moral and wanted you to subscribe to them.
I would believe that, but I spoke to my mum and I spoke to my teachers, and all of them have said the same thing. They're only teaching what they know, and even though I speak to them now and ask them, are these things immoral, they kind of close themselves off and they won't answer the question. I mean, the main one I asked them...
Welcome to my life.
Not about them, but this is what I'm saying. The majority of the world that I know, not the majority of the world, because I don't know the majority of the world I know that I brought them in, is a very sinful world. And I'm looking for an escape from this sinful world.
So when you're saying it's a sinful world, do you mean that people are doing things that you believe are immoral?
No, people are doing things I believe everyone believes are immoral. They just won't admit it.
For example?
Eating meat.
Okay, so not everyone believes that that's immoral.
No, they don't believe it. But if I ask you questions on it, surely we could get to some sort of... I can get you to immorality. It's a simple question asking. Can I try a thought process?
One
last thought process to see if you understand where I'm coming from. If you don't, then we can either end it or try again another time, or maybe talk about something else. Whatever your call is. Okay. So, for example, I pose this question to many people, and I've even posed it to myself, which is why I changed my stance on it. We're talking about one thing, and that is about eating meat being immoral, and this is the world we live in. Now, the immoral stance on eating meat is for example, if the laws changed, and it was like, it's up to you whether you give your children cigarettes and alcohol. And my daughter comes to me and said, Dad, can I smoke cigarettes and have alcohol? She's 3 years old. I tell her no. And every parent I've spoken to have all said the same thing. No, I would never give this to my child. I said, what if that child says, I like the taste of cigarettes and alcohol, and I'll only have one a day? And then I'd still say no.
Yeah.
And yet doctors tell me, and studies show me, that eating meat has a much more detrimental effect on their health. It's addictive. It's not just meat in some of these products, chicken nuggets, all these things we feed our kids.
You see what you've done, Jamie?
Fuck this stuff.
So I'm sorry. Is your assertion that the consensus of medical science is that meat is one, addictive, and two, detrimental, at least in the same league as cigarettes and alcohol?
I don't care. What does this have to do with sin?
You're good.
It has to do with morality, doesn't it? If we are still doing this to our youth, that's an immoral act.
That's right.
And we tell ourselves it's immoral, but we say it's
yes,
not immoral.
But so you've made this assertion, and you've made this assertion that, I bring this up, and people will accept that it's immoral, and they do it anyway, and it's a sinful world. No, you failed to persuade me that eating meat or allowing a child to eat meat is immoral. I'd tell a child not to eat roadkill.
Against his health. What I'm saying is to do something that's against his health and the welfare of being of this animal is immoral, right? So for me to feed my child meat, that is dangerous for that child.
I mean, you've said something, doing this is immoral, right? And I said no, and then you continued, but...
Yeah. Oh, I do apologize. Why do you say it's not immoral?
Why do I say it's not immoral for an animal to be harmed?
No, not just for an animal to harm. For me to risk the life of my child on eating meat for no reason.
Yeah. You risk the life of your child every time your child rides in a car.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Why?
Why do I risk the life of my child? Because
cars are dangerous. You're putting them in a box made of metal and glass and sending it at deadly speeds around other metal and box glass cars. The medical consensus is that getting in a car accident is dangerous as fuck. Why is your child ever riding in a car?
Well, you don't know my child rides in the car.
That's true. I shouldn't say that about your child. Why would anyone ever put their child in a car? Car seat or no? Why?
I have no idea. There's a risk in this.
Maybe it's a part of a very, very, very complicated, multi-layered, interconnected part of modern life that makes it necessary to get around. Maybe there's questions about whether or not one level of risk or another level of risk are moral, and maybe not there's questions about whether the harm to animals is different.
Is it necessary to eat meat? Is it different? Is it necessary to eat meat?
Please.
Necessary? No. It's also not necessary to drive a car.
Then I've answered your difference.
No, it's also not necessary to drive a car or travel anywhere by car.
And if it's not necessary, then don't do it.
Yeah, so don't drive a car. Don't put yourself or anyone else in a car. Don't do it.
Okay, so what is this got to do with my argument?
Your argument is based on harm to human beings, and I'm saying that, one, you've asserted that, there's a medical consensus, or at least you've said, the studies that I've seen and the things that medical professionals have told me have led me to believe that eating meat is that it's addictive and that it's detrimental to your health. And you, in your analogy, used cigarettes and alcohol.
Yes.
I don't believe that
eating animal products can lead to heart disease.
And
heart disease, one of the biggest killers throughout our Western society.
Yeah,
according to medical reviews.
And
so why do we still keep doing it and encouraging our children to do it? That's the question. Why do we do it?
Okay. Oh my God. And walking can lead to tripping, right? Like the fact that a thing can lead to that.
Why do we
because the fact that this can lead to that. One, it can be a factor in the risk of heart disease. And why do you believe that is a sufficient defeater for, a person is feeding their child bacon on Sunday morning?
Well, I don't
so
believe
what?
That's the whole reason. Like I said,
So give me the reasons why I shouldn't then, in terms of, it'll harm the child.
Well, of course, teaching your child to do something that's harmful for its body and not understanding it, that's completely wrong. You shouldn't do that. In my opinion.
You're using a lot of absolute statements here that entirely avoid nuance. Something that is harmful for its body.
Well, yeah.
Anything? Going out in the sun without sunblock is harmful for your body. You're literally exposing them to radiation.
Well, depending how much sun it is, I suppose.
No. UV is ultraviolet radiation. That's what sunburn is. It's not heat, and it's not direct light.
Yes.
It is radiation from the sun. That's why you get skin cancer when you burn your skin enough.
It was just a joke.
No, it's not. I'm serious. It's also not necessary to be in direct sunlight. Why would you ever, ever, ever teach your child to go out into the sun, to go sunbathing, to not walk around with an umbrella and sunblock? Why would you do that? Why are people still teaching their children to do that? I've just made a point. The scientific consensus is in more solidly than it is on meat.
My point. All you do is prove my point. We are in a world of sin. We shouldn't be doing that.
Do you believe that it is immoral for a parent to tell their child that they should go run around outside in the sunlight?
Without proper protection and knowing what the sun can do, yes.
Without proper protection, wow, is any amount of sunlight safe with any amount of protection?
I don't understand the question.
So is there any amount of sunlight that a parent can be morally justified in allowing their child to be exposed to? Any amount at all?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
So, I'm sorry, is it ever moral in your mind for a parent to teach their child that it is okay to go out in the sunshine?
Without protection and understanding, no, there's no morality. That's not moral, no.
How much protection and understanding is necessary? How much protection? An umbrella? How thick?
Don't know.
How much ultraviolet sunblock? The kinds of arguments that I'm giving you, where it's give me the fucking details, are the kinds of arguments that I wish people would throw back in the face of a vegan that says, if you've ever touched meat, you're immoral and full of sin now. I feel like we should probably continue the rest of this discussion next week.
I think I'm putting a hard line on that.
Because I think we've gone on this for 20 minutes and there's more details needed. So I'm going to go ahead and end this call, Cal. I think it was... We got to some places that were good, and maybe I'll talk to you next week. Maybe Eric will murder me.
I am murdering
Would you be
him.
able to do that?
Yeah.
Say your
Not
last
if I murder
words.
him first. Sorry.
Would you be able to answer the question I asked you earlier before we go?
Which question is that? Probably
No.
not in,
No.
in seconds. But
Is it moral to feed a child something that we know can lead to extreme harm?
you've provided insufficient detail in the question.
We're
Well,
done.
he didn't mean to
I'm
tell
jumping in and we're done. Cal,
That's
You
the drop
resist that?
button.
no, I'm going to
Are you-
say something and you're going to deal with it. Cal, can you hear me?
That's not the world.
Cal, can you hear me? Cal, when you're on my show, when you're on our show, you do deal with it that way or you hang the fuck up, right?
it's
So
not a
listen,
bully.
I'm jumping
not a
in.
bully with you.
I've had my
They're my
time.
rules.
I'm going to
But
pop you on hold if you don't shut up.
You refuse to answer
Cal,
my question?
3, 2, and he's on hold. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to say again, this is Talk Heathen, not Talk Vegan. Please send your vegan hate mail to president at atheist-community.org. He is the president for another year, so you absolutely have to go. Don't send that shit to me. Cal, are you done talking? Are you ready to listen?
Sorry, sir, what was you saying?
Oh, perfect. This is
I put
this
you
is
on
an
hold.
asinine
Put me on
argument.
hold,
This
so-
is an asinine argument that does not belong on this show.
I was
So
joking with
you came in,
No, but
started
this is what I'm
talking.
saying.
Shut the
This is
fuck
all-
up, Cal, and
don't tie
listen.
in with my beliefs.
Okay, now you're dropped,
Yeah.
and you don't get to come back on anymore. You're done. You're done. You're done. Because here's the thing, Jamie. I love you, buddy. You had some great arguments. The conversation started about about a deity, about sin, about God, and saying that the Son is God.
I'd like to point out that I brought it full circle because I got him to admit that his God that gives life also gives skin cancer.
Also in an
And that it would
abstract,
be
it doesn't matter.
entirely immoral for you to expose your child to his God.
That's a weird jab that has nothing to do with the fact about whether or not gods exist.
His entire
So,
system of belief
we're
and
moving on.
statements are a weird jab to his
Jesus,
face.
fuck. Rao in Wyoming, please, please,
actually-
if you say
it's
vegan,
actually RAO.
I am. Oh, I'm sorry.
RAO. It's just the letters for some reason.
Okie dokie. RAO. If you say vegan, I'm dropping you. What would you like to talk about today?
I was actually wanting to talk about defining omnipotence. I mean, I was calling the atheist experience a couple of times, but you guys seem like it'd be more in-depth conversation rather than getting me shut down immediately.
Well, so you want to talk about omnipotence, right?
Yeah, just defining what omnipotence would be. I don't like to talk about my specific belief too much because I don't like to feel like I'm indoctrinating on the show.
Well,
But at the same time,
this is what we talk about, though, Ario. And if we want to talk about omnipotence, then it does have a context, and that context is because omnipotence is a descriptor that people have used to talk about their God. So if you want to talk about the specific idea of omnipotence, yes, we can go there, but it's right now inextricably tied to those God definitions, because otherwise, what are we using that concept to describe?
well, I don't.
Do you get what I mean?
Our definitions of right. I think our definitions of what we worshipped as gods before are not the same as what true omnipotence would be. I think.
Okay.
I
Then what's your definition?
I look at the ancient text. I would define omnipotence based on what it wouldn't be able to do because it's omnipotent. And just to kill off the Merry Bachelor once and for all, I think Dennis Rodman is close enough.
Okay, continue talking about the God,
answer
please.
it's cute, but it doesn't actually, rimshot.
Right, but-
Okay, let's actually.
An omnipotent being would be unable to involuntarily fail.
And something that is unable to involuntarily fail. So generally, that has been called maximal. When somebody recognizes that omnipotence is a very problematic thing, they've moved to maximal. And that generally is about that. So you want to say, if you say omnipotent now in conversation with you, I'm going to replace that with maximal unless you have a problem with that replacement, because I'm going to do my best to try and understand what you're saying. Does that work?
Well, I actually love the concept of having both, because I
What's the difference?
Maximal. What I would call omnipotence now, what I was going to refer to as true omnipotence, would be the ability to exist as things that are able to do all of the things that you would not be able to do as a maximal being.
So while I get that, what you're saying, I do. In practice, I would contend that there are 0 places where you could describe that. Conceptually, I get what you're pointing at, but in practice, I see 0 difference. Do you? How about we pop a pin into this and you call back after you've thought about it? Because that's kind of a tough one. And I'd love for you to get the time to think about it. That way it's not just trying to be on the spot. And we can revisit it next week.
I would love that, man. It was excellent to talk to y'all. It was great to meet you.
It was great to meet you too. Take care, brother.
Talk to you next week.
Take care.
All right. Jamie, who are we talking to next?
Your mama, I believe.
I'm going to tell her you said that. She liked you.
I would like
to
talk
you,
to your
and you know
mom.
what?
She
You haven't even
call
said
in.
hi to her.
Yeah. I've said hi to her
Stephen,
at every
in Pennsylvania.
opportunity.
It's been a year.
Hello?
Hi.
How are you?
You're talking to Eric and Jamie. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good. What do you want to talk about today?
Be on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was this concept that Tracy was having a bit of a, well, not problem, I guess, but more like an issue of trying to understand. And to be honest, it's sort of a concept that not that many people actually understand themselves. And it's a concept of nothingness. And the reason why is because we live in a world where there's always properties that is influencing things that we conceive as nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So the analogy that I go for is imagine a ball pit and it has a bunch of balls in them. If you remove all those balls, you can say the ball pit is now empty, but it's not derived of all the properties that comes with it, all the different tension, tensile strength, all the different material properties of the actual frame, the flooring, not to mention gravity, air resistance, and so on. So what I think of nothingness in terms of the Big Bang would be basically not any area, because that would be based on space and time and all that. Yeah, so what I think of it as nothing is, let's just say like for lack of a better term, space, as in an area within nowhere. And nowhere meaning that there's no way to.
That's contradictory.
Well, I mean,
to be clear, this is something that you should research with a source for scientific knowledge.
Yeah, what I actually have trouble getting through is in describing nothing, you are trying to say, that which has no descriptors and can be written out as the empty set. But by describing it as the empty set, you have now given it a descriptor, at which point it is no longer nothing. When you're getting to that kind of thing, when you're getting that deep, what we really need to do is make sure that we're anchoring it in the real world so that we can have conversations that are useful and productive. So when we can plug those things in, then we can agree on definitions that work and move forward. Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, it might be fun, but until it actually has impact on the way we understand things, it's again one of those mental masturbation type things. And don't get me wrong, I love mental masturbation.
Oh, they know.
But it's kind of unproductive. Do you get what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So, was there anything else that you wanted? I got you. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we move on to the next caller?
Nothing off the top of my head. I guess I'll call back later today on the Atheist Experience if I come up with anything.
Rock on. Tracy's actually going to be on today, so I think that's a great time to be able to call in and talk to her about that, because
she has more than nothing to say about your nothingness question.
Yep.
Oh, man, that'd be great.
All right.
Take care.
Talk to you later. All right. I think we have some patrons that we need to thank.
You saw me queuing that up.
Nah.
You're being nice because you railroaded me on the vegan call.
We'll talk about that afterwards.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we are. You're not going to like what we have to say.
Nope. So it's time we thank our top 5 patrons.
I'm calling Dr. Brenner right now.
Dude, you better. Jimmy's still my best friend. I love him. People say, oh, I absolutely hate when I see them argue. No, but realistically, lovingly, we still move on and we're still best friends. We will be after this. We still are right now. So if anybody, no, it's cool. It's cool. Matt did actually pull me aside and tell me to breathe. So that was interesting. So top 5 patrons. If you want to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. Right around the middle, maybe 2/3 of the way through each episode, we thank those patrons. And now's that time. I want to thank our top patron, Neil Bradley. Ooh. Neil, thank you. I want to thank Desert Heathen, Dr. Funkenstein, Nando Gonzalez in Lynette and Cross. Neil Bradley, Desert Heathen, Dr. Funkenstein, Nando Gonzalez, and Lynette and Cross are the top 5 patrons that really keep us going. And we have a good number of patrons. And what's amazing is the vast majority of them are $1 contributors. And that's awesome too, because if a couple people have a hard time and maybe need to pull their patronage, then if it's a couple bucks, it's not going to drastically impact things. You know, every dollar counts, and we don't have major donors. And really, this really does help, and we absolutely love it. So please, if you can support us for as much as, little as $1 an episode, it's $4 a month.
Every dollar
on specific months, but yeah.
Every dollar counts, including the one in your wallet right now.
And if you can't, that's totally cool too, because we could really use help when it comes to Google Analytics. And so if you haven't left a review as a podcast, if you haven't hit that thumbs up, or if you haven't subscribed, please hit that thumbs up, subscribe. It doesn't cost you money. It doesn't cost you much. That you could do it right now, and it really, really helps. We want to be able to get out there. We want to be able to have these awesome conversations. And that support enables us not only to do that, but to do awesome events, things like that, to be able to have a live studio audience at 1507 West Koenig Lane. You're welcome to come join us every Sunday at 1 p.m. Central.
And if you have any opinions about anything we've said in this episode, leave them in the comments below.
Unless it's about veganism. And
leave it in the comments below.
You're dealing with it.
Oh, of course I am.
President at atheist-community.org.
Leave it in the comments below. Both. I'll be in the YouTube comments.
Oh, gosh.
Send me your hate mail, and then also tell me I'm wrong in the YouTube comments.
All right. Let's move on to the next caller.
I'm going to put an A right over your cross right now. Boom.
So we do have a couple open lines. We're going to save those for theist callers.
20 minutes.
But if we can shoot through them, I want to be... Okay, fine.
Take the call.
Yeah. Jeffrey in Pennsylvania. You're talking to Eric and Jamie.
Yo, what's happening? Mr.
We said
Jamie,
your name in
Eric.
unison.
We did. You know what? He did not know exactly which one I was going to pick. We're mind melded. We know. It's a lot of practice. I like it. But that really doesn't impact you.
Creepy.
It is. It is.
Yeah,
super creepy. What do you want to talk about?
My question is probably on the board. Truth. Lowercase t or
capital T?
Uppercase T.
Sure.
Truth. How would you falsify truth? How is that possible?
Oh my gosh, this is another one. Oh, where's my Jamie James? So, I don't think we can ever actually know that we've gotten a hold of capital T truth. Because
I understand.
Because how would we know? The only methods that we have are methods to show that something is wrong, not to show that something is right. We can show that, maybe our equations work 1,000 times out of 1,000, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work 10 billion times out of 10 billion. we just are kind of left in this weird lurch where aiming for capital T truth is what we should do, but acquiring it's never something that we can.
Exactly. So we're in a position, I agree with you, we're in a position of, I guess that's where you could say, put the word agnosticism in there, but I don't really want to use that word. I just want to say we have to recognize a position of like you said, obtaining this capital T truth really is not something that we particularly can, in our own power, obtain. It would be something if there is a capital T truth, that capital T truth would somehow have to make itself known to us.
Well, that is if you're giving it, qualities and characteristics, which would be weird. I know that it says you're a religious scholar, and so we're going to move into that. But just before we kind of move into what you believe and why, the question that I have for you is, do we need capital T truth? Jeffrey?
I'm considering what you're asking me.
Sure. So an example is when we're talking about our cell phones, right? If we're talking about capital T and lowercase t truth, then everything that we have is as reliable as we can find, and yet we don't know if we have every equation working, and yet our cell phones work. Right, we get into cars that use internal combustion engines, unless you're in an electric car, in which case, I don't want to go back to talk vegan, but we understand things about the world. Those equations, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We don't want to prevent ourselves from moving forward as a society because we can't get to capital T truth. We still have to be neighbors, be parents, be friends, be workers, and those are all things that we have to do without it. So in what way do we need capital T truth? It seems like we're doing pretty well aspiring to it, even though we can't necessarily know that we've reached it.
Okay, well, if we just abandon capital T truth, then truth lowercase, what is that? What category is that? And is that something that we need? Do you think that we need that?
I think we don't have any choice but to use it.
Okay.
Right? Otherwise, the world that we live in would be unintelligible. Holy crap, we just got a $100 donation from Travis Thompson. We got some really big donations last weekend, too. Dude, thank you.
And one of your patrons is famous, apparently.
You know what? We've got a couple pretty cool patrons. They've really, really kicked in and helped out. And I'm sorry, I know this is in the middle of the call, but I saw it, and last time I forgot. So thank you for being patient, Jeffrey. I just want to say anybody else who wants to contribute, the ACA is a 501c3 nonprofit. Your donations go straight to us, and it really, really helps. We do put it to good work. Jeff, thank you for letting me cut in. Lowercase T truth. Nope. We're kind of in this cool place. What do you believe, and why do you believe it?
Well, I believe in a creator of reality.
Okay. Do you believe that creator of reality is somehow tied to any specific religions?
Christianity, yeah.
Okay, why?
Because I believe I have trust and faith in what Christianity teaches, which is it prioritizes love for that creator and love of my neighbor.
Yeah, that sounds like something. I believe it. Would you agree with me that you're cherry picking what you want out of that Bible? It's an honest question. I mean, it's an honest question. What? I'm not trying to be a jerk about it.
I know.
So are you cherry picking out of it?
The answer to that question is that everything that I choose, you can say, is a cherry pick. It's what I choose to. I choose to believe in having love and appreciation for my Creator, number one, and also His commandment to love my neighbor as myself. I respect that, and I choose to believe that.
That's not what cherry picking that analogy means. It means I've picked these berries off of a cherry bush and said, look, these berries are sweet. Therefore, every single part of this bush is delicious. And what Eric is pointing out and is going to point out is that you're not chomping on the leaves.
Mm-hmm.
There's bark, there's bugs. You don't just get to kick that out and keep what you want unless you want to admit that that's not a reliable or justifiable position to take.
No, I do choose not to eat the bugs and the crack. Yeah, I do choose not to eat that.
Okay,
so
are you justified in doing this?
Am I justified in doing that?
Yeah.
Let me see. Initially, I mean, just off the top, I'd say yes.
Okay.
But you may disagree with that, but I do believe that I am.
So what I'll say is, oh gosh, I just pulled a Jamie. I'm turning into everybody today.
To clarify.
Right. So Jeffrey, when we're talking about that religion, right, and these are things that are espoused in lots of holy books. They're espoused in lots of fiction books. I can point to plenty of really wonderful works of fiction that also have those values. That doesn't mean that the other things in that fiction are true. I can say that there are true things in some books and not others, right? My go-to is Spider-Man, right? It takes place in New York. New York is a place. Presidents get elected, and we learn a lot about pop culture and all of that in the Spider-Man comics. That doesn't mean that Spider-Man is true. And so pointing to something that you like or something that you can verify is morally or, ethically or objectively beneficial does not mean that the rest is. And so I would say that no, given the evidence that you gave, it is not justifiable to have that position. It's not rational.
What specifically position are you saying is not rational?
The one where you accept the Christian deity. Unless you're redefining it, at which point, I mean, okay, we'll take your definition.
I'm trying to be very specific.
Do you believe in original sin?
Okay. Original sin.
Yes.
That term has always things have to be defined. What do you mean by original sin?
The story of Adam and Eve, where Eve partake of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and that condemned humanity to sin for the rest of time, which is a kind of a curse that is born onto every single human thereafter. So everybody is born into sin. It's the prerequisite to why Jesus in the story sacrifices himself to cure that original sin. Without it, there would be no reason for a sacrifice. It is the thing getting between people and the idea of heaven, because they need to be able to, accept the sacrifice about sin, right? It all kind of falls apart if you lose original sin. Do you believe that original sin is a thing?
Yes.
Okay, why? Do you believe in Adam and Eve?
Yes.
Do you believe that there was a time when there were only two people on this earth?
Well, I believe the account of Adam and Eve, whether or not they were the only two on the earth, that I'm not sure. But I do believe in the account of the testimony about Adam and Eve, yes.
Okay, you know that there are supernatural things about that testimony, and we can go through them one by one. And I think you'd probably disagree on a lot of them. So it sounds, again, like you're cherry picking.
Well, I mean, again, it goes back to what I said. If you say I'm cherry picking, well, aren't you cherry picking when you say there's supernatural this, that, or the other things you're going to point to? That's
that's a perfect question. I love it. What am I cherry picking? Because to the best of my knowledge, I'm just evaluating what you're bringing up and determining whether or not that's a good thing to believe and why that might be a good thing to believe. What am I cherry picking?
What I'm cherry picking, and I will admit to this, is what I believe. That's what I'm cherry picking. I'm letting you know the thing that I believe in. So if that's cherry picking, I admit to that. Yes.
Okay, it looks like Jamie's winding up to bat. Let's pop him on the plate. Go for it.
Jamie.
Hey, what's up, Jeff?
All right.
Furry.
It's
So the reason that he's brought up cherry picking is you're saying, oh, I believe these things about a God and what God commands and what's good, right? But that's not something that can be said to be, oh, this is what the Bible purports to say or supports, because that's not what the entirety of the Bible says. The problem that's being highlighted and that we'd like to highlight by pointing to it as cherry picking is, what about all the other heinous shit in the Bible? Like, I mean, I was letting Eric take this call, but
that's a huge conversation, Jamie. Obviously, we can go down all of those things. We obviously don't have enough time, but let's just go with the first thing, the first verse of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, I believe that. I choose to believe that. Now, let's just go with that.
Okay, so that's not really what I was getting at. I mean, how about the parts of the Bible where God commands his chosen people to commit genocide? Are those the commands from a God based in love?
Jeffrey?
You still there?
Yeah, I'm considering your question. I'm sorry.
All right, no, you're good. I like to give people time to think.
Takes me a while to think about things.
That's good. It's better to think for a while and come to a ripe decision than to jump.
Yeah. Now, that genocide that you point to, that he commanded Israel to commit, you might as well say that genocide was from the very beginning, when he laid down the sentence of death for disobedience. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I mean, you're describing further the acts of a God that I don't see as a being of love.
Yeah. Jeffrey, do you have any kids?
Absolutely.
What would they need to do for you to murder them?
I would never murder them. And death...
I'm glad to hear it. Why would you ever tell some of your children to kill the other members of your children, like your tribe?
I wouldn't.
Okay.
So it sounds like you're a lot more loving than your God.
Yeah. Would a loving parent or deity ever do those things?
No.
That makes you...
But if you believe the text of the Bible, it says that the God of Abraham did those things. So is the God of Abraham loving?
What I'm trying to get you to see, listen, what I'm trying to get you to see is that same, for him to tell Abraham to go and kill someone,
his son,
is
Isaac.
pretty much the same. Whoever it was, I'm not even clear, where exactly this falls in the scripture. I know it's in there, but the point is this: from the very beginning, the whole point, or God Himself, issued a judgment, which was death upon all of us for disobedience.
Would you ever issue that judgment to your children? I mean, you've said before, no. And the point is...
you have to, it's a very nuanced, and you have to understand what this is. It's just like, for you to ask me that would be, listen.
Okay.
For you to ask me that is the same thing as asking me, would I correct my child when they do something wrong?
No, it's not.
Well, that's the difference in you and me.
Okay.
No.
Yeah,
The difference is I'm not obfuscating about a story about a being that kills people and saying, no, it's a being of love. Is the God of Abraham, the one that the Bible describes as both Yahweh and Jesus, a God of love? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
He's being direct, too.
Okay.
He obfuscates about a lot. This is awesome.
So when that God commands his chosen people to commit genocide, or he instructs his chosen people in the correct way to own slaves, or he says, disobedience to me is worthy of death, are those the commands of a God of love?
Right. Yes.
Okay. You and I have a very different view of what a God of love would or could do.
I really, really hope your God doesn't love me, because that is a fucked up kind of love, dude. The difference between correcting your child and condemning them to suffer is the difference between sending your child to their room and locking them into the closet and burning the house down. Right? Eternal suffering and damnation, which is also prescribed in the book, unless you don't believe in that. Do you believe in eternal suffering and damnation? I'm kind of jumping the gun.
No, I'm very out of the box with regard to that. I do believe that God is love, period, like it states, and I believe that's very true.
Okay, well, I honestly think that if you want to redefine God into the concept of love and say that love exists, then
what do you mean redefine? What do you mean by redefine?
There's a lot of baggage that we're talking about, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
There's a lot of baggage around the God claim that you're tap dancing around.
Yeah.
Where does the baggage come from?
The rest of the Bible. That's what the cherry picking is. The rest of that cherry tree is full of murder and genocide and slavery.
What you're doing is
I like the berries too, but that tree is fucking poison.
You're tearing some things out to leave others. I mean, I have evidence for the last time we did that on the show. There's actually a Bible page right behind you, Jamie, we didn't pick up.
I like the we in that sentence, but sorry, Jeffrey, we're getting a little bit heated here, but I'd just like to point something out, that people in all cultures that I am aware of, and then in all times, with or without a god or gods or cultural traditions, have loved and cared for their children. And I'm glad that you do that, and I don't think that depends on a god or a Bible or any text. And I'd like you to know that that's the way that Eric and I act as well, and we do it without a Bible. And so remembering that, I'd like to ask you generally, because I think we're running up on the end of the show, and I'd love to have you call back in because, hey, maybe we've misunderstood something, to think about whether or not any of this religious part is necessary for you to believe in love as a force for good.
Ooh, I like that. All right, yeah.
But
we hope to hear back from you.
I learned. Okay, I appreciate the time, Jamie and Eric. You guys keep up your
heathenry,
keep up your good work, huh?
He was joking. We'll do our best to keep up our
good work. Quit joking all the time. That's why that's why people get all stumbled up, because you guys are joking all the time.
Yeah, that's
just
true.
Messing with you.
Oh, he points at me. He points at me.
And he ended that by saying he was just messing with you.
Okay.
But Jeffrey thinks joking is fun.
I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for calling in.
Peace, you guys.
Take care.
Peace and love.
All right.
And no gods.
We're ready to move on to Steffan. Steffan in Illinois.
Oh, sweetness. How you guys doing?
Hey,
sweetness,
we're doing
yourself.
Good.
Awesome.
I'm kind of wanting my caffeine back. Jimmy took my caffeine and then he tore into a vegan, and
because
and he took I want it back. Anyway,
even though I'm going to give you something that is demonstrably harmful for your blah 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 blah, it's moral for me to give you the drug that you're addicted to. All right, Steffan.
Well, I just had a monster, so yeah.
Monster.
What would you like? What would you like to talk about, my friend?
All right. So I'm an atheist. I've been an atheist for just about a year.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you. I'm extremely happy about it. But yeah, my girlfriend is an agnostic theist. Her parents are probably one of the most religious people I've ever met, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is.
That.
So I've already debated her mother, who I'm pretty sure doesn't really know all that much about her own religion, and I'm planning on debating her dad sometime soon here. And I'm definitely no either of you guys. So
that was a compliment.
I just say we just got put in the same category.
Yeah, that was very nice of you.
See what?
We just got put in the same category as Matt, is what we were pointing out.
That was very sweet of you.
Oh.
You guys all do such a great job, and I mean, every single time I get into a debate with any theist, I automatically think back to you guys, to Matt, to Tracy, all of you guys, because you guys, I feel like you guys are probably some of the best at doing this, and it is. I mean, that's just how it is. So,
I guess
I was wondering.
I guess the first thing that, if you have more question, otherwise I was going to dive into advice. Go ahead.
Go for it, man.
Okay. So the first is, what we're doing is not actual moderated debate. What we're doing is an involved discourse where we're jumping in and talking to each other and making sure that we define things. I had my first moderated debate, and it's nothing like this. It's people taking turns talking at each other. And it was weird and awkward, and I was terrible at it. but I want to get better. But what you're doing is you're having a discussion with somebody, and what I want to very, very carefully caution you about, is it Stephen or Steffan?
If you want to call me Frodo, go for it.
I'll call you whatever you want.
Yeah.
All right, they can't all be gems. That's fine. So, Alfredo, whatever. Now I'm getting off here. Off topic. So what I wanted to say was the reason we're doing our show is because there are people who are watching this dialogue, and it helps. They're able to see kind of some of these ideas, fleshed out. And it is helpful. It's nice to be able to watch that in a safe environment where you can, tease those things apart. That's not what's going on a one-on-one with another person. People are unreasonable, and they can get angry. They can choose to end the discussion, and they can choose to say, you know what, no, I'm wrong, or no, I don't want to, talk about this, or in the worst case scenarios, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And it's rough, and it hurts. And so the advice that I want to give is you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. You can want to have the conversation, but that doesn't mean that they want to have the conversation with you. So please be careful and, really practice some good judgment on whether or not that is the time or the place. You would know better than us, but I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And, my girlfriend honestly is a lot like her dad. So I do have hope. I've debated my girlfriend on multiple occasions. Unfortunately, since she's my girlfriend and she knows that I don't mean to be a complete and total jackass to her. Sometimes it does get heated, again, on a point where I know, you know this doesn't sound right in the Bible, or this doesn't sound right with your God, and yet it's a little irritating. But at the same time, again, the point is she's a lot like her dad, so I have hope. But then again, like I said, this is my future wife. They are my future in-laws. I don't want to piss them off. But at the same time, if I can help them, or if I can, try and help them see this is why I am the way I am. This is why I stepped out of religion in general, because of all this, religious crap and all this stuff that, I read in the Bible. It just doesn't make any sense. So maybe I could help them understand who I am, and then that'll help in future conversations if it ever comes up with my own parents, which is going to be an interesting one. But that's pretty much it.
My advice would be emphasize that first. Emphasize why you're having the conversation. Because if it's, listen, I just want you to understand who I am and where I'm coming from, because you're going to be my future in-laws and you're going to be my future wife. That is going to be a fantastic basis for the rest of the discussion, because it's very easy when people are not reminded of each other's humanity, whether it's online or in the heat of the moment, for things to be said that we wouldn't otherwise say, or points to be made in an aggressive way. And, along the lines of what Eric said, you can argue with logic, but you can't make them think. If the point of your conversation is for them to understand what you're thinking, then don't think of it as a debate. Think of it as an explanation.
And the live chat is throwing in some advice too. But first and foremost, Jamie, all of that. Yes, I absolutely agree there.
Yeah, doesn't mean you get credit for saying it.
No, I'm just underscoring it.
Yeah.
Maya in the live chat said it's important not to expect anything in one conversation. Play the long game.
Yes.
That helps, and absolutely agree. There are a lot of other people who are saying, hey, check out street epistemology. And street epistemology can be a good way to get them to start thinking along those lines. See what works for you. But just know that you're not going to change people's minds in a day. That's just not going to happen.
And also, it's something that I struggled with immensely. Don't hold the goal of changing a particular person's mind or a particular group of people's mind as something that is set out for you. Because we do this and we'd like to change people's minds and bring them this. But it's hit or miss in terms of how large our audience is, how many people's minds we change. And to say, oh, I definitely want to change this person's mind, is to put yourself in a position where failure is not uncommon, and it can weigh heavily on you when that's the case.
Right.
Seek first to be understood.
Even if you don't change their mind, having them understand the mind and thinking of a non-believer changes the world significantly.
Even if you're not having those conversations directly, them getting to know you and how you behave around other people is going to contextualize their understanding of what an atheist is. If they know you're an atheist and you just be a damn good person, you're already doing a whole lot of good work.
Right. If I may, real quickly, there's something that her dad has actually said. I don't know how to combat this. He said that there is, whenever it comes to being an atheist, he says that that takes a lot of faith, and I highly disagree with that.
Well,
I don't know how
is
to
that a
combat
bad
it.
thing to them? Do they think that having faith is bad?
I don't think so, because obviously they have faith in an imaginary being upstairs.
Just ask that.
Yeah, Jamie's giving.
Well, you're saying it takes a lot of faith to believe this. Is faith a virtue?
Right.
The other one.
And then if it takes more faith to be an atheist and faith is virtuous, is it more virtuous to be an atheist? I mean, it's a very debate argumentative way of responding to that. But
snarky.
No. I mean, it's not even tongue in cheek. It's if this is something that you think takes more faith, then why don't you think it's more virtuous?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it may just be better to.
Well, the other one is to say, hey, it sounds like we have different definitions of faith. Let's talk about those definitions. Right. What do you mean by faith? Because that can open the door for you to be able to have those more nuanced conversations. And if you disagree, that's okay. Say, let's find a definition that we can both agree on, so at least we can have the conversation. Because the conversation is more important than standing up and saying, well, you need to use my definition or else. That just stifles conversation.
Right, exactly.
But I think it's about that time. So, Stephen, thank you so much for calling in. Hopefully this helps.
Let us know how it goes.
Oh, absolutely.
And if it goes terribly, call back in and tell us we've given you terrible advice. So.
Yeah. Oh, come on now. I've watched you guys a lot. I've watched you guys for quite some time, and I don't. No.
Well, no one's ever called back in and told us, actually, I took your advice and everything went beautifully. Nor have they called back in and said, actually, we took your advice, and now everything's on fire.
We actually have had that call before.
We've had that call?
Yeah.
No, we had that I was thinking about this. They looked at my internet history, and now I don't have a home call before, if that's what you mean.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah, but it wasn't
worked out well for them, actually.
Yeah,
so.
It wasn't an angry,
anyway.
You set my life on fire. It was a thank you, I'm free call.
Cheers.
Right.
In any case, well, let us know how it goes, Steffan.
Bye, Steffan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See,
oh my God, in the middle of that, I'm sorry to have to say this, he kept saying, future wife, she's my future wife, she's my future wife, and the room watch party is in the process of being planned for my house, so I couldn't hear anything, but, oh God, that...
If you say Borat, I'm
No,
walking out.
It's not Borat. The Tommy Wiseau's voice, just going, my future wife.
Okay.
I'm like, oh my God.
That's better. Okay.
But I'm glad I was able to give good advice anyway, because I'm almost like a professional, except I said this while we're still on camera.
It was all warm.
Love rings. Wow.
It was all warm and fuzzy, and so now I'm not as mad at you.
That's good. Wow.
Whatever. We got a $5 live chat saying, this might be enough for Jamie and Eric to split a cheeseburger. Take that, vegans. Send your hate mail to president@atheist-community.org.
Send your cheeseburgers to 1507 West Koenig Lane.
Okay, so sick or not, well or not, we're here. We're going to continue to be here. We want to be here because this is where we're trying to do the most good in this community. We're trying to build it and grow it, and that means that you are a part of it. Because if you don't believe this is your community, it is. And if we're fucking up somewhere along the way, we're going to do our best to make it better because we do want this to be a place where you belong. But if you do believe, We don't hate you.
We just
We
think
just think
that
you're wrong.
veganism isn't justified.
See you next week.
Militant veganism.